I appreciate you being willing to join me.
Yeah, thank you for asking me.
Yeah, no problem at all. I've been watching your Twitter basically for a little while and seeing some of the artwork that you've been putting up. And it's been intriguing along with the kind of storytelling that you seem to want to be doing. And I wanted to initiate a conversation about all that. So let me see. Let's start with Rin Hoshigumo.
Hoshigumo.
Okay. And what kind of stories do you set out to write? What is your definition of it?
Well, I actually didn't think to myself I will write in a particular genre. I just got ideas for story when I was younger. Around about 15, I just had a lot of ideas, but I just didn't have a lot of time to write because I was too busy living until, I don't know, life happened, had a kid, and then decided, well, Amazon comes along. I think I'll get my stories down. And a lot of my stories are actually inspired initially by dreams or very, very strong images. And I just go with it from there. Yeah. So what I do is I come up with a story and I just squeeze it into a genre. I don't think I want to write in that genre. I think this is my story. Where can I put it? I don't really try to trim my story too much to fit in any particular place.
It's like Amazon's kind of trying to get you to pigeonhole yourself, right? They give you a list of things. Pick one. Which one are you?
Sorry?
It's like Amazon is trying to pigeonhole you. They give you a list of things that they want you to pick and decide what you are before you can start selling your books on their platform or any platform that matter. Yeah, I totally understand. It's like one of the hardest things you could do is pick that thing, that genre.
Mm-hmm.
Are you satisfied with where you are in the Amazon hierarchy of storytelling?
Yeah, pretty much, because my main goal is basically just to get my stories out, and any sale that I make, well, it's already a profit because I spend so little in what I'm doing. All the advertising I'm doing is free, and I'm basically not really spending money producing the stories. So any sale is already a profit.
Mm-hmm. So where do you do your graphics at? What kind of do you use Adobe?
Do I use
what do you use to make your art, your digital art?
Oh, I use my iPhone. I use my iPhone. I've got adhesive putty. I've got sticky tape, which I use to hold it in place, and I just create the images. And I use apps like Prequel or whatever apps are on the App Store that are free.
Do you feel limited, though, with the free apps? I've tried them also, and the stuff that I've produced seems you can get it to a certain point, but there's so much more that you could do. Like, I think Adobe has a free software, and you can only have like 4 or 5 layers going at a time. It's like, man, I wish I could do so much more, and you end up paying money for it. Do you feel limited with the free apps?
Not really, because
your expression.
I don't feel limited because they're all that I've ever known. And going beyond that, I haven't really investigated. So I'm just used to working within those limits. Adobe is something I've never used. I just use the phone apps.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's really incredibly interesting about you, though, is that you are kind of your own canvas, though, aren't you? And everything that you kind of do with those apps is in the background anyway, right? I mean, you're the actress. You're the canvas. I mean, I can't think of another better way to say what you're doing.
Basically, I'm the model, the actor, whatever, because it's easier than hiring someone else, because I never really have a plan, a script or anything. I've just got a rough idea and then I go for it. And when I get the time to do it, it might be after work. And sometimes I finish work at 11 p.m. Sometimes I start work at 4 a.m. So it's like whenever I can squeeze it in, and to find someone to work with my schedule who'd be comfortable doing things the way that I do, it might not work out. I mean, I've only actually found one person whom I'd be willing to pay to model because, one, it's like I know him, and 2, he had a resonance with the character, but he's not too comfortable with it. So I'll do it myself. It doesn't matter whether the character's male or female. I find something to do with it.
It's interesting though. I was looking at some of the terminology that I would try to apply to your work, and I wondered if it was erotic art, but I changed my mind.
Some of it has.
I think that it certainly is erotic in a sense, right? But it's almost like anti-eroticism, isn't it? It's kind of violent in a way, or disturbing potentially.
Some of it is. It just depends on the ideas that come through with it. And I think a lot of them would be disturbing because I was exposed to a lot of things when I was young. I saw a lot of stuff happening because my parents were extremely open with me. My father basically, he didn't really want to be a dad, so he didn't want to watch kids programs. He watched whatever he wanted to, and it was a family thing because he was basically the head of the family. So I saw things which, as a child, it's like sometimes the images, they'd stick with me. And they stuck with me because I didn't get the message behind them, and it confused me. And I just hung on to them until I could work through what was going on. So I think some of it would be because there was a lot of stuff going on around me, which is coming through in the work. Plus, my dad did watch a lot of very, I don't know, sexually explicit and violent material. And I saw that from the age of about 3, 4 up.
Interesting. I have PTSD kind of from what my mom did to me as a kid, where she gave me a lot of freedom. She let me go out in the world and explore and kind of do these really crazy things looking back on it. Like go canoe out to the Gulf of Mexico, or I found myself alone over a nest of snakes about to pick them up. Yeah, oh gosh, the things I did as a kid, absolutely outrageous. As an adult too, I'm an outrageous person, unfortunately. But I wonder, would you take it away? Because I mean, you have a child, you said, right? Would you want to take away that flavor that you're able to add to your art because of your experiences, or because
definitely not? I don't regret any of my experiences. I think they've contributed to the way I view the world, and I don't think that there is such a thing as, people can do what they want to do, but there's no such thing as a perfect life, and you work with what you've got because it is an aspect of reality and truth. It's like some people, it's like something is just not fitting into the model of what is perfect or acceptable. They'll steer away from it. But sometimes you don't have that option because it's life. And a lot of the people whom I get close to, their lives are pretty wild, especially their younger lives.
That's very true. I don't know anybody that doesn't have.
My son doesn't have that sort of life, but he's had a very different life, and it shaped him very differently as a person. There's a lot of things that, because he's had a different sort of life from me, he would not be interested in. And he's also a lot lazier because he's just having things done for him.
I see. So you did kind of shelter him from the things that you experienced as a child.
Oh, definitely, because they were not suitable. Because my father, I mean, no one's perfect. I mean, he brought in the money, sort of, but sort of not as well. But he didn't want to be a father. He didn't want to be part of a family. And if you're going to be like that in a family setup, you're not actually doing something good. It's actually taking away, and it's not a really good environment for a child. So I wouldn't want to repeat that because it's not acceptable. But it's what I went through, and I accept that it happened to me.
How does that flavor your storytelling?
I think it gives it a darker element, and sometimes a scarier element. Sometimes I want to eventually move on to writing things for children, but because of the experience I went through as a child, and I know originally fairy tales, they were not nice things. It was basically meant to tell the world as it is in a way that a child can grasp, but it's still telling it nasty. And it's like, I want to eventually move on to steer away from the sexually explicit stuff into more children's things. But I think there's always going to be a certain unpleasantness, but then that's a part of life. And I don't want to make it too unpleasant, but at the same time, I don't want to give someone a neatly pulled nothing story, which is not interesting and very forgettable, because children do sort of like nasty things sometimes, so long as it's fun as well.
It's fascinating that anybody in the last 20 years as a child had to experience children's stories involving planes running into buildings and 20-year-long wars and human trafficking and horrible, horrible circumstances that really defy imagination, right? I mean, look at those fairy tales that we were told as children, compare very little to the experiences that my children are going to be told over and over and over again. I live in New York City. They're going to know the fairy tale of 9/11 over and over and over again. You know what I mean? It's not going to be Cinderella. It's going to be this idea of what's going on in the Ukraine. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Filtering that stuff that comes into their experiences. It's going to be massively different. So I think the idea, because obviously the current events are spawning from our experiences too, right? I mean, that was the world that we grew up in.
Yeah.
We're writing that type of story because of those experiences.
Yes.
I wonder what your son will do. You think that you're sheltering him from it. You know what I mean? Maybe my mom felt like she was sheltering me from it, or your dad didn't care, but he still made you experience something absolutely outrageous to the point where you're producing art from it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't expose my son to a lot of things, but if something comes on the TV and I think it's unsuitable, well, if it was a horror film would come on, if I wanted to switch it off and not change it, sometimes he'd want to keep watching because he'd be curious, even though he was scared. So I'd let him if he wanted to say that, and I'd explain to him it's not real. But in the end, he wasn't drawn to horrible things. But even so, I say that he likes Five Nights at Freddy's, and I think that is such a dark story for children. But he's comfortable with it. I mean, he's 13 now, but he was playing that game with his friends, I think when he was about 6 or 7.
Yeah, that's crazy. Is that the Five Nights at Freddy's? I don't know. Is that the horror game that you play as
Yeah, you're stuck in this.
bad guys?
You're stuck in a pizza parlor with these animatronics, which are like these robot stuffy toys, and they chase you around. But it's a really dark atmosphere. And when you actually hear the backstory of it, it's just like it's like some sort of devil worshipping nightmare. It's like, this is a game for kids. They're making it into a film. My son wants to see it when it comes out, and it's like, this is just a nasty. It's horrendous.
But at the same time, you say that you want to write children's stories. That's the children's story that your son wants to hear and see. My children love Pokemon. My children love like these hero things. You know what I mean? I think that children are going to be drawn to the stories that are going to help them navigate through the turbulence of the real story surrounding them, like the Ukrainians and 9/11s or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Five Nights at Freddy's. It speaks to your son's generation. I'm a middle school teacher myself. That 13-year-old type person. I kind of am familiar with them, and they seek kind of that warm comfort first thing that's going to help them make sense of something that doesn't really feel very good.
Yeah.
No child in my school has taken off their mask yet. Really, there's very few. I find that fast. I couldn't wait to get to school without my mask. I could not wait to get to school without my mask on. And all the kids have theirs on still. My kids as well. I walk home from school with them. They still have their mask on. I mean, what story is that telling?
Yeah.
Right? That's interesting, isn't it? Like, you're coming from this erotic kind of place, and I think your characters are childlike in a way. Innocent.
Well,
they're being betrayed, or they have been betrayed.
In The Servants of Me, that's my second novel. That is sexually explicit. A lot of the stuff that I'm doing there, I'm embodying the ex of the antagonist, who's also the love interest. And when they were involved, they were minors. They were both minors. And it wasn't actually, it was all consensual, but, it was like young people playing at very adult things in a very, was the sort of thing they thought it was cool and risque and whatever at the time. But later on, it's like, that was probably not a very good idea for either of them. And things like this do happen. I actually had the idea of the story when I was 13.
Well, why not, right? That's when you're most corruptible. That's when that puberty things are happening. I mean, I can't. There are all these confused people around me all day long. I have no clue what they're doing. They're so manipulatable. You know what I mean? It's such a vulnerable position in life to be in.
Yeah,
and you can be led astray by each other. I had a conversation with these two girls, and they were talking. Maybe they were joking. I have no idea, but it was so disturbing that one girl called her and her friend gang babies. It's like, Jesus Christ. In my mind, it meant some girl that allows herself to be used by a gang or whatnot. No clue what it actually is. I don't know what she meant by it, but that's what came out to my mind. It's just a disturbing experience for her to have had. For me to have had, for her, basically. What was the point of that? Do you know? Hopefully you do.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was actually a very sensible child when I was younger, because one, I was exposed to a lot of things from about 3 or 4, and I was explaining them in a way that it wasn't like a fairy tale. They told me what was going on with my parents. So I avoided a lot of things until I was older, because I didn't want to do adult things as a child because I saw it all around me. But I had classmates who had a more sheltered life, and they wanted to explore all this stuff because they thought it's risque, it's fun, it's bad, it's grown up. But my view of it was, this is complete rubbish and you're an idiot, because I saw this going on from when I was younger. So some of my characters, it's like they had the point of view, oh, this is fun and everything. Whereas I, as a kid, I was very old when I was a child because I'd seen so much. And a lot of people would comment how mature and how much like an adult I was, because adults were doing all this around me and I was not impressed with it. In fact, I thought it was rather icky, but I just watch it and study it and analyze it and not completely get it. But I'd think to myself, when I see younger people trying to do this, I was just disgusted with them.
You're in Canada, right? In the Northwest?
Yes. Yeah, Vancouver. Very near
beautiful.
Vancouver.
I've never been. I lived in Seattle for a little bit, but I've always wanted to hop over the border to Vancouver. I never did, though. It's wonderful. I'm very jealous of where you get to live. Here, it's very expensive, though. So I don't know if I'm jealous or not. New York's very expensive, too. It's horrible to what we have to pay for rent. Are you from there originally? Did you grow up there?
I grew up in England. I was born in Singapore, and then my mother, she couldn't stand my father's family because they were so controlling. My grandfather was, he was pretty nuts. He had a brain injury, but I think that affected his whole behavior. But no one really realized there's something really wrong with him. They just accepted he's the head of the family at the time. She couldn't stand him, and my father was not supportive. So she just left me and my father, came to England by herself. And my father didn't actually want to leave his family, but his family couldn't take me with them because they wanted to go to Australia. So a year later, in 77, when I was almost 3 years old, my father and I joined her, and we stayed in England until the 90s. Then my parents got divorced, and then later on my mum came to Canada, and after my son was born, I joined her here because she said it's so much better than England, so much better. And I didn't believe her, but she kept pushing, try to find some work here and see what it's like. So I did, and I realized she was right.
Oh, Canada's nice. I'm so
Yeah.
jealous. I've only been to Toronto and Quebec, but they're wonderful places. The people are wonderful. I just love the experiences.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I've chosen where your mom chose for you, but I guess you Singapore's a colony, isn't it, or no?
It was colonized by the British, and it gained independence, I think, somewhere in the 60s.
60. It's independent. You do not do the Queen thing at all.
No.
Well, now you do though.
Sorry?
Well, now you do, don't you? She's on all
In,
your currency.
in Singapore, I
No, in
don't know
Canada.
because, oh, Canada, oh God, yeah, yeah. Her head is still there.
Always staring.
In some places, at least, yeah. I haven't actually looked too closely at the coins, but I've seen her head about, yeah.
Yeah, you have an interesting. Your story is interesting. I mean, you traveled so much as a child from one country to
Yes.
another. I'm looking. I just opened up the Wikipedia for Singapore because I'm just curious. You said your uncle had a head injury type
Um,
situation going on.
my grandfather, when he was a small child, his sisters, they used to beat him a lot because when he was very small, his father was not from the right side of the tracks. He was a sort of gangster, and he sort of like got bumped off, accidentally. Like he went to the forest and he fell, which is highly unlikely. And after that, all the father's friends took the money, and the mother didn't know what to do. So the sisters had to become very independent and like adults before their time. They took out their frustrations on him. And because they kept hitting him in his head, I think they gave him some sort of brain damage.
It's awful. That's
It is. It
bad. My
is.
goodness. This is a really tough place in the world too. This whole region was what been taken over communist, and there was a whole bunch
Yep.
of Western involvement. And
Singapore, no. But they were, the Japanese all invaded in the wartime, and things were pretty tough. But I mean, I don't really. Of course, I wasn't there at the time. But my grandfather had a very tough life, and he was, I think, very emotionally damaged. Plus, he had some sort of behavior. His behavior was influenced by the head injury, which made his temper extremely. He just had a terrible temper, and he was irrational. But people just sort of accepted it because in the culture, it's like it was very patriarchal. Plus, his wife, when he married her, she was 16, he was 26. She knew nothing. So it's like he set the rules for her, and she would know better, and she wouldn't dare to know better.
it's awful. Your grandfather lived through like a horrible massacre. It sounds like during
I
like
don't know.
the World War II. If he's as old as my grandfather, we're about the same age.
He moved to actually Singapore when he was quite young. I don't exactly know the full background of how he got there, but his background is like sometimes his stories don't add up. It's like there are missing pieces. But he somehow got to Singapore. He sort of bullied his way there because I think there was some sort of queue to leave the country or whatever, and he sort of bullied his way to the front of the queue, and then he got on some sort of ship and stuff, and his surname got changed to this, I think it's like a Scottish name, Thom, because they couldn't spell his name, and someone just changed his name. So he had a whole new identity by the time he got to Singapore and then got his family there. It was a real struggle for him though, because he was a young man.
And
he's
immigrating from someplace other than Singapore at that point. That wouldn't even know where he's from, right? As a child. That's really interesting. I mean, because then in Singapore, there's this horrible, violent thing called World War II that happens. And if he's a child during that, it's fascinating. My wife's family hails from Korea, and her father and mother lived through the Korean War as children.
Yeah.
And I can't think about what horrors they must have experienced without cringing. As a child, my own children going through something similar is just a nightmare to think about.
God, yeah.
I'm oh man, Ukraine, being a young child, having to defend that thing from those bullets that you can't even do anything about if it's coming in your direction. What a nightmare to have to live with the rest of your life. But yeah, so something will probably be wrong with them, right? And then you're the product of that constant, where's safety? And you found it in Vancouver. On top of a volcano. Isn't there a volcano where you are underneath you?
In what, in Vancouver?
Yeah, isn't there like active volcanoes all around you?
I don't know. There's some. I know there are certain parts of around outside Vancouver. It's like Greater Vancouver, I think you call it. It's very prone to earthquakes. So I don't know if there's an active volcano, but there are places where it's like it's not stable, and in a few to several years' time, we don't know what's going to happen to certain places. Are things going to break up more? Is there going to be flooding? And I don't know, whatever. So, I don't think I'm in one of those places yet.
That's interesting. What? You're not in what place yet?
I'm not in one of those places where it's like they're saying, well, in a few years, we could, the ground could be breaking up. This place could be sinking, or this place could be.
I was going to say that's Earth, isn't it? I think everything I hear is saying that the Earth is going to be totally unlivable within like 2 or 3 generations or something like that.
Yeah, you watch nature programs. Some of them are actually quite scary. If it wasn't for the nice soothing tone of the music, it's like the facts you're getting is like, what's happening? Why is all this strange gas coming up into the waters? Because I don't know, the Earth below is breaking up. That's why.
We're fracking the hell out of it is what I think is going on. Man, there is a town in Pennsylvania that I accidentally drove through not too long ago that stunk so bad that I felt physically ill. We do horrible things to ourselves and to the planet that we're living on. But yeah, I think you guys are doing a better job up there than we are down here for sure. But unfortunately, we share the same planet. So messing things up. Where do you see the children's writing coming into play for you? Is it soon, or are you still going to be playing with these kind of anti-erotic art pieces and novels?
Well, I'm going to be turning 48 this year, so I think after this year everything's going to get a bit slower.
Why?
Because I'm thinking to myself, I'll be going. I don't know. I'm not menopausal yet. I'm not really even properly perimenopausal. But I'm thinking once you're getting past a certain age, you can't channel that energy anymore. So you've got to step down from it. Plus, I've worked out a lot of what I wanted to work out because in the past couple of years, I really went at it to get all these images out because I knew my time is limited doing this. And when I was embodying the X from my second novel, I actually got to a point where I got underweight. I went down to 97 pounds. I'm just a little under 5'3", and my periods went a bit wongy. So I thought I was going through the menopause. So I thought I need to rush it out, but I wasn't. It was just because I went underweight and I didn't realize I was underweight. But then I realized, no, my time is limited. So get all this stuff out, work all this stuff out. And my current novel, it's a sci-fi. There is going to be some sex in it. It's going to be explicit, but not as heavy as The Servants of Needs. And after this novel, I don't think I'll be doing explicit sex anymore. I'll have 2 more like adult novels, and then I think I'll go into more children's stuff or young adult, or not young adult in the way young adult is now, but more sort of like teens and tweens, but not with such an adult element in it.
So do you regret going explicit in the novels that you've written so far, or anything that you've published on the internet?
No, I've no regrets at all. But sometimes after I've written the story, I think to myself, this is a dodgy story. At the time when I was 13, I thought this was brilliant and fun. I mean, I read Lace when I was 10 years old. So, I mean, I've read all sorts of stuff. And I was thinking to myself, this is actually really dodgy for young people to be getting into. But then I don't know if my audience is going to be primarily young people. Because one, The Servants of Need is about 100 and how many 80 times? It's about 160,000 words. It's quite a big thing, and I don't know. It depends.
Your science fiction novel is 190,000 words.
Oh no! This is my second novel, The Servants of Need, that with quite a lot of erotic content. That's about 160,000 words. I don't know how if young people would really be wanting to read something like that. I mean, some people would.
That's a tough question, isn't it? Right there, not to jump in, but do young people want to read X anymore? Is that even something viable that we can do as storytellers? Are you a novelist? Is that the only way you can tell stories? Or is there another way that you can entice an audience to your work? You know what I mean? That's what I'm
Yeah.
questioning right now. Because I wonder, $15 million is what Brandon Sanderson just made on a Kickstarter for his next novel. You know what I mean? He said, I'm going to write an indie book. Help me out. And everybody said, okay, here's $15 million for a novel. As an indie author, I don't feel like people read it all. Maybe that's a personal thing, but
yeah, I know what you mean there. I mean, there are some people who read just about everything, and I'm surprised that they still do because I work in healthcare. I was a care aide. I still am a care aide. I'm also a nurse, and since studying nursing, it's like I almost don't want to read anything at all because of all the studying I've been doing. So I have a degree in literature, so I did so much reading by the end of my degree that I almost never wanted to read again because it took apart the way I enjoyed stories.
I think you're like me. I have a degree in English, a creative writing, but you do a lot of literature also. And
Yeah.
I tear everything apart now too. And
Yes.
I bet you're like me and you have like 50 books around your desk and they're all open to various pages and chapters. And, you know, the narration that the author is telling you doesn't really matter because you're trying to tear it apart anyway.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of books now because I've when I was in England, I moved around a lot. I had over more than 20 different addresses, so I got rid of a lot of stuff. So I don't have a lot of books and things like that. I have in the past, but I got rid of them. Now it's like I think I've only got like a handful of books, and I might get rid of them in the end because it's like they take up space.
Oh my God, do they ever?
Mm-hmm.
I like to I don't finish anything though, unless it's really freaking good and then it's destroyed and I have to throw it away.
I've got a few books that I haven't finished, but I want to finish them because the way I see it, I paid money for that book. I've got to get my worth out of it someday, even if it's 10, 20 years later. But I've got Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I started reading that into about 2011. I still haven't finished because there are so many unnecessary words. Oh my God.
The thing about something that's so classic like Frankenstein is that you've read it a million times and not even realized it. You're not going to be surprised by that story in any way whatsoever. I mean, yeah, the language is purple. Everybody was writing purple during that time. You know, they were verbose. Let me see how many syllables I can fit into this paragraph. Yeah, that's fine. That's what everybody was doing. But in terms of Frankenstein, oh my goodness, this whole world knows that story. That's how well she wrote it.
Yeah. She did write it well, but it's like she could say a simple thing, but it would take about 2 or 3 paragraphs. It's like, seriously. Her sentence construction may be wonderful, but it's just like, what is it like communicating with people who can't just tell the truth and just spit it out? It's like, oh my God, what are they like to relate like in real life? Are they like that? I don't know.
Well, have you ever read what is his name? Byron, the guy that she was writing with at that time? He was writing poetry.
I know a bit of his, was it She Walks in Beauty Like the Night and All That's Best of Dark and Bright, Meet in Her Aspect and Her Eyes. I read some of his stuff and it's like, okay, I don't think you're all that. I mean, okay, you wrote a few poems, but you didn't deserve adulation.
He was like the Backstreet Boys of his time, though. You know what I mean?
I know, that's crazy.
Everybody loved Byron or whoever Byron's contemporaries were. And I think Mary Shelley, she's writing like that because that's how people are supposed to be writing.
Yeah.
Now people are trying to write like J.K. Rowling because if you can figure out how to write like her, you're going to make $1 billion. Or write like Sanderson or what's his name, Tolkien or whatnot. If you write like those guys, then you're going to be able to capitalize on their success.
Yeah, I don't understand why people think that, but if someone already fills that space, I think if everyone tries to do that, it gets really dark.
And ever, because you have a copy of Frankenstein since 2011 that you're still trying to read. You know what I mean? Everybody loves to be the next Frankenstein, but sorry, there's already a Frankenstein. There's already a J.K. Rowling. You can try to mimic it all you want, but we've already done it. You're just helping us with your fan fiction or whatever. Kind of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some of you know the story of Frankenstein because people have been destroying it over and over and over again. And unfortunately, you're not marveled by that kind of language anymore. It's just boring. It's not going to help you as an author, really, except know how not to write like an 1820s. You know, she was afraid to even be female at that time. She was afraid to be herself.
Yeah.
She's hiding under the guise of being a male. It's an interesting story that Frankenstein thing is in our culture. Yeah. Like one of the first pieces of science fiction too, right?
I guess it is. I always thought of it as horror because, I grew up with those Boris Karloff films. So to me, it was a horror film. I thought Frankenstein was the monster. I didn't realize he was the guy who made
Yeah, he was
Frankenstein.
a doctor, right?
Yeah. Victor.
Doctor. Frankenstein's monster is this corpse that he reanimated through science, right? He invented this whole thing through science. And was it at the end of the day a nightmare?
Yeah, and it was
yes, for the monster. The monster's the one that had to fucking had to go through all that stuff. You know what I mean? For him, his existence was, oh my God, why did you do this to me? You've made me into this fiend, and I can never join society, and I have to, whatever he had to do, wander the earth. It's horribly sad. Frankenstein is actually the monster if you think about it, right? He's done this horrible, horrible thing.
Yeah.
Comes back around. It's a great story, but you're right. I couldn't read it. I've got a copy of it too. I've tried, or I have 1,000,000 times, and I just don't want to say that I've actually read the copy I own.
Yeah, it's like Dracula. I've never read the book, and I just had one look at it, and I thought, no, but I've listened to the audiobook of it.
I've read it. I've read the first part of it over and over again. Yeah, it's so good. I love the first part.
Oh my goodness.
Part loses me every single time.
Because that's all like written as letters, isn't it?
Yeah, it's epistolatory or whatever, not journal writing or whatever. He's engaged in telling you this mystery of this castle and how it kind of works itself out. It's really nicely done. And then it changes to like this third person narrative, and Jonathan Hawkins or whatever his name is. It just becomes a character. Like, I think anyway, because I really lose interest at a certain point in the storytelling. That's brand new though at that point, right?
Yes.
We have the fortune of having hundreds of years of, or at least 130 or 40 years of constant novel writing to bear down on.
Yeah.
Who do you find yourself writing like, or emulating, or hero worshiping?
I don't know. When I was younger, there was an author called Storm Constantine. She wrote these fantasy books set in this universe where mankind had been replaced by a hermaphrodite race. I loved her stuff. It was just her characters and just the way she told her story. And I'd never encountered characters who expressed themselves just in the way that her characters did. They were just like real people. I like Hannah Flee's stuff because she's got an incredible imagination. And it's like each of her stories, it's like, it's a completely different world. Sometimes it's like a different narrator. It's almost like it's coming from a completely different place. But I would never write like her because her writing's too fancy. It's just,
have you workshopped your fiction before? Have you done the creative writing thing, or just literature?
I did a creative writing module way back in 95. It was just like for about 3 months. I did one module.
Would you recommend it, or do you think it helped at all?
I think it helped a little bit, but at the end of the day, you've got to write for yourself and find out what works for you. When you write and you start editing your own stuff, and you'll see, well, there's certain things that I keep doing, and sometimes you're reading something that's like, I'm not really telling the story here. This is more like an outline of the story that I want to tell. It's like you've got to work it out for yourself. You can't just keep learning, going to a class. I think you've just got to do the job and keep doing the job.
Unfortunately, that means making mistakes, right? It's just like constantly bumping your head up against, oh crap. I just published 2 books, and this is like my 3rd or 4th attempt at putting something out there and chickening out and pulling it back. And this time I put something out there and there's a freaking mistake on my cover. There's a mistake on the title that Amazon publishes and won't let you fix. Like, Jesus Christ. It's like you can't. Everything is wrong. So you just have to let it go and just let it be, right? And keep moving on.
You can't change the cover. I've changed the cover. My second novel, I did a revision. Cool. Oh,
I haven't done it yet, but I've done the graphic change. But it's so depressing. Like, there is an actual typo that I cannot fix or figure out how to fix. That's the problem, isn't it? Is that you don't know how to fix it until you do.
How about you order the proof copy, go through that, and then do the editing and release it when the proof copy is okay?
Right. Are you 100% satisfied with the work that you put out there?
The first 2 ones, yes.
Yeah, are you really?
Yeah, now I am, yeah. The third one I sort of rushed a bit because I'm working and doing other things. My third novel, that was originally just going to be a short story based on a nightmare I had when I was studying for my GCSEs. But it became a short novel, and I'm not wanting that to be too perfect because I'm wanting it to be true to my 15-year-old self. The narrator, she uses language in ways that I might probably want to polish it up a bit, but that's not her. And it's told from first person narrative stance. So I'm actually very happy with that novel, the way it's come out and the way the cover looks. And I thought the cover was going to be tacky because what I did was I got my face and a photograph actor Peter Wilson from La Femme Nikita, and I sliced it and then I edited it with another app just to change certain shapes and like the proportions. And I used that, and it came out looking a lot better than I thought it would. When I looked at the book, I was thinking this book actually looks pretty damn nice. Whereas I was thinking to myself, I'm just going to do something cheaper, like be true to my 15-year-old self, just slap everything together, and it worked. And it's also
at the end of the day, that's all you're doing, isn't it? You're just slapping something together under the parameters of certain rules.
But it's the first novel where I've actually got to put titled chapters in and not just numbers. I wasn't going to do that before, but there's this author I follow on Twitter, UL Harp, and he was talking about making sort of chapters with titles. I think actually I'll do that. I never did that in the past because I just couldn't be bothered. So I thought, I've written a book. Why now I've got to think up titles for the chapters as well as the book? No. But I thought, I'll do it from now on. I'll do it.
So yeah, I like that attitude. I have to do everything. You really do, though. You mentioned marketing earlier.
Oh yeah,
free advertising.
Oh yeah.
Is it just the images on Twitter, or more than? Is there something else that you're doing?
There's Twitter, there's Facebook. Because sometimes, occasionally, if you start a new account with Facebook, they'll give you an ad credit. So I just use the ad credit,
and it's worked out for you. People like it.
Yeah. I mean, I sort of like there are people who see. Well, I don't know whether they're going to read my book because of that. But then, I've had some people, who've read it, and I don't know how the hell they even got hold of it. I mean, sometimes people might see me doing something on Instagram and they might be moved to buy the book. And also, I used to do things on OnlyFans, but I've shut that down now because, I'm bored of that. If anyone wants to sort of register, they'll just see old work. And I've moved on to Fansly because I want to do a mix of things, not just like erotic things, because with OnlyFans, it's like they only seem to give you two options. Is it yes to sexually explicit or no? Whereas Fansly has yes, no, or maybe. So I said maybe, and I think I can do whatever I want. Because if you present yourself in a certain way in OnlyFans, they'll say you'll be misrepresenting yourself. It's like just suppose you say, yes, I will have sexually explicit material, but you put something very non-sexually explicit, it's misrepresenting. So that's very either or. And I don't want to be limited by that. I just want to do whatever, whenever, wherever.
And it's working out for you, obviously.
Yeah, actually, so I make more money from that than with the books usually. Yeah, I mean, actually, yeah, I make consistently with the book sales. It's like up and down. Then sometimes someone will get stuff in Kindle Unlimited, and it's like, oh, then they all decide to read it once, and you get loads of reads. It's more unpredictable, but it's still money coming in.
So it works. I love what you're doing with your art.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you do.
Because it's not like you're putting yourself out there fully. You know what I mean? But you're not giving me like, the porn version of you. You're giving me like this sultry, shadowy, artsy.
Yeah, it is my body, but is it really me? Because when you're embodying a character, it's not what you might usually do if you're in real life. I mean, so like I could be in real life and I could get like a piece of kitchen roll and blow my nose in it and just horrify everyone at how long I keep the kitchen roll for, because it's like, it lasts longer than a normal piece of tissue. Like, what the hell are you doing? It's like the real me would probably be nothing like, those images. I mean, I'm sure people would walk past me and they just wouldn't recognize me because it's a different vibe, whatever.
Well, that would be the hope, right? You wouldn't want to be recognized. Or would you?
I don't know. I mean, if they recognize me, would I know that they were recognizing me for that? Or would I just think that they're looking at me because I'm there? Because, a lot of the time when I'm going about my business, I'm thinking to myself, what have I got to do next? What have I got to get now? Do I have to do something for my mother? Do I have to do something for my son? Have I done this? Oh dear, I need to go and update that bit. Oh, I've got to sort out. It's like I'm always thinking of something. I wouldn't have the time to be acknowledging everything that's going on around me. So if someone did recognize me, I wouldn't know where it was from. Is it from work? Did I do home care for them or something like that?
It's a curious environment, though, to put yourself in, the whole eroticism thing. I mean, I did look up because I wanted to discuss that particular part of your artistry. And, I mean, you run into a history that goes back the cave paintings, right? I mean, it's existed since humans have been able to interpret our existence in art form. I mean, there's been examples from 4,000 years ago of this little bump on the wall where if you lit a fire, it looks like the bumps are humping together.
Oh my God.
I
Wow.
know it's like prehistoric porn on this cave wall. So I mean, it's something that people have been doing forever. Do you
I
feel a
wouldn't have thought that.
kinship? What?
I wouldn't have thought back then they would have had the mental development to do that. Seriously.
We're sitting there on mushrooms, accidentally ingested some
Oh.
magic mushrooms, and we're sitting there in the fire eating some meat or whatever. And, it's like, holy shit, what if I drew a line right there? I can't imagine why else we would do it. You know what I mean? Sex has been the primary driving force of everything human since the beginning of time, right? I make really good bread. Be my husband. Grow meat for me. So that's going to go away then.
Yeah.
The erotic part of everything, including yourself, because you don't feel like you fit the mold of somebody that would be deemed sexual.
Well, in my everyday life, I'm not like a highly sexual person. I'm definitely not hypersexual. Sex is not my motivating reason for doing a lot of the things I'm doing. In fact, even in a relationship, it's not something that I need. It could be a nice to have, but it's not a non-essential to me. It hasn't always been like that. But now I'm 48. I'm not 18.
This is new as far as the art goes. Is it something that you've been pursuing since you were 18 years old, or is it something new that you've just landed into?
I've had a lot of images going on in my mind since I was a very young child, 6 and before, because of stuff that I've seen. And I just be my sensible self, and I just watch these images and have these strange thoughts because of all this stuff that was going on around me. But I only actually started working it out and expressing it more recently, sort of like I think with my second novel, The Servants of Need. Plus, I mean, before I did that, I was messing about sort of like on, I know this dating app called Badu, not because I wanted to meet up with someone, but just because it's a nice way to look at nice looking young men. I could change my location, go to, I don't know, different countries, go to Scandinavia or wherever, and I just sex with young men. And because I want to see them assume the poses of my characters. So I'll do an exchange that way. I'll pose for you. Now, could you pose for me? Because I want you to embody my character. And that's how it started, because I was thinking to myself, I mean, these guys seem to be okay with the photos I'm taking. I'm actually thinking it's quite fun. So it's like, I think I'll just take this a bit further. And plus, just before I actually started writing, before I started finishing the first draft of The Servants of Need, I came across this app called Face App. And I just messed about with some of my photos, and it made me look significantly younger, to the point it's like, this is giving me bad ideas, because I could embody, the X, because, one, I've got a small frame. 2, if you change my face, oh man, I thought this is a terrible idea. Then I thought to myself, well, these young people did have a terrible idea. So I just decided to do that. I took a whole load of shots of myself, and I think 167 erotic poses. And then I whittled it down to 127, made the grade. And then I edited what I could to make it younger. And I changed the face a little bit, and I put them away in a sort of, I put them away somewhere where the reader could find a way to link to them. There was meant to be an email that would send you a link to that album, but then that email account got deleted because I didn't use it for so long. So I just put the stuff up on OnlyFans.
So it all started from an app that allowed you to basically cosmetically disguise yourself.
It started from, sexting with people in Scandinavia and all over Europe, young men between, I don't know, the ages of 18 and sort of like mid-20s. And actually there was one person I got actually hooked up with this person. He's actually significantly odd. He's about almost 10 years younger than myself, but he looks and acts a lot younger. And we hooked up and we had sex, and he said, so like, do you want to make a video? And I thought, seriously, he's asking me. I was thinking this, but I didn't dare ask him. So he let me have the video. I said, could I have it? He said, yeah. So I put that on my OnlyFans as an in-character piece, as the X with the antagonist.
So it's graphic sex.
Just one video. Oh, actually, there was 2, but I spliced them into one, and I edited it because I had to change the skin tones, because there's something about a lot of phone cameras. They always make me look about 3 to 4 shades lighter than I am. And the X is actually a little bit darker than myself. So I had to edit it to get the skin tones right, because I don't know, I always, 9 times out of 10, I just look so pale in non-filtered photos. It's just like, what's happened to my tan? What's happened to my normal skin tone?
So every picture I've seen of you is darkened because the X is darker.
For the X, yes. The unedited shots are not edited, but everything that I've done as the X, and all the ones where I've managed to change the face to make it look younger and give her a fringe, then yeah, those ones are all darkened, because if I'd left them unfiltered, it would be she'd look too fair. Plus, I wasn't even that fair at the time. It's just how it came out in the photos.
So, do you suntan in Vancouver? Do you get sun there?
Well, I don't know. My natural skin tone is I'm not actually that fair. I'm just sort of like a middle color. And when the sun comes out, I need the sunlight. I actually feel much better if I've been lying in the sun. It relaxes me. I mean, vitamin D is good for blood pressure and all sorts of things. So when it gets warmer, about 18, I'm going to find some sun and I'll lie in it for a while because I need my vitamin D fix.
Right. It is nice that winter's about to be over with. Now it's snowing out there.
Yes. Now. It's snowing where you are? Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's nasty today.
That's really horrendous. Gross. Is that usual where you are, this sort of weather? Or is it like freak this year?
No, it's nasty in the beginning of March all the time.
Oh, man. Goodness.
Yeah. What about where you are right now? Is it rainy and cloudy?
Right now it's cold and sunny, and it looks like spring is definitely here. But then we were forecast a bit of snow we're forecast a bit of snow, I think, later this week, and I hope they're wrong because this winter it was short, but it was intense. And I've realized I've got to the stage in life where I don't like winter anymore. I don't think it's fun. I don't think it's pretty. It's just a hassle.
Yeah, I want to move to Florida. Yeah. I'm done. I grew up in Florida, but I'm ready to go back.
Yeah. How come you were left alone with snakes? Did your mom not realize that you were with snakes?
I don't know what she realized. We were very young and we were at the playground.
Yeah.
And there was a gas inlet type thing with a cap that screwed off. And I'm a dumb 7-year-old, 8-year-old by myself. Yeah. So I unscrew the cap and, writhing in the bottom were like a bunch of garter snakes. And thank God, because I did not know what they were just snakes. So
yeah,
my thinking was if I ran home and got my winter gloves and ran back, I could collect those snakes. And and I did. I collected every single one of those snakes. I took them out of the pipe and I put them in Jabba the Hutt's little stage thing from Star Wars. I had that toy. And I closed the lid, and I randomly, over the course of the next few weeks, would see a snake chopped up into little tiny pieces in the backyard. So basically, my parents are finding them and killing them. And
oh my God.
I don't even think my mom is aware that this happened at all.
Oh my goodness. And she didn't say to you, I found some snakes in the house, you've got to be really careful.
No.
Oh, man.
Oklahoma, there were snakes all over the place.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's coming on for you? You have a science fiction novel out that's right now?
I'm working on it. I intend to publish it by 2023, early 23.
Well, I really thoroughly enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah, likewise.
And hopefully we can do it again.
Okay, thank you very much. Lovely speaking with you.